Hello, welcome to PODnas. This is a sports show with some Southern and Cajun flair. I'm Daniel Hawks. That's Jared Roser. Today, we're going to talk about the Pelicans' fall in the NBA draft lottery. Derek Carr retires, and also LSU Clemson finally has a timestamp on it. Jared, reluctantly, how are you doing today?
Not great, Bob. Watching that lottery last night, man. Let me ask you to start and just set the tone for this thing. How much time do you have today to edit in the bleeps for the curse jar?
What the fuck?
Because
what the fuck? what the hell just happened?
I mean, if my text messages last night, and honestly, my explanation to my dad of how the NBA draft lottery works and why it was so awful for our conversation before we started recording this morning. If any of those are any indication, I've got a whole lot of F words and just creative interjections of the F word into the middle of other adverbs that are just waiting to continue to stream out.
Yo, we're going to be able to buy you a second Roomba with all the money from the curse jar today. That's my goal. Okay. Curse jar. That was terrible. That was really, really
unbelievable.
Awful. So Pelicans, they dropped to number 7. Dallas with a 1.4% chance wins the lottery. So the order goes Dallas 1, San Antonio 2, Philadelphia 76ers 3, Charlotte 4, Utah 5, Washington 6, and New Orleans falls at 7. The 4 teams that had the biggest, or the 3 teams that had the best odds to win were Charlotte, Jazz, the Utah Jazz, and the Washington Wizards. They all fell outside the top 3. This system is broken. I'm not gonna call necessarily foul, but this system is broken and it needs to get fixed. There's no sense of parity in the NBA when shit like this happens. When the Dallas Mavericks are able to get saved from the worst damn trade that has ever happened in the NBA, and now they're gonna get there. Do you understand? Like, I know anyone who's a Pelicans fan that's watching this understand, and they have won a couple lotteries themselves. But do you understand how awful it is, like, to be like the Jazz, the Wizards, or the Hornets, or and I mean, I think the Pelicans have a little bit better. They do have I would ostensibly say have a better roster than those 3, but those 3 teams that were supposed to have the biggest odds are now going to be stuck in perpetuity again for another minimum year. Like, because all of the top 3, maybe Charlotte gets someone, because I don't think Ace Bailey. I think Ace Bailey is going to be way too raw. And you go to Philadelphia, and that's going to be a show. Curse jar me again. I don't think any of the teams in the top 5. I'm just I keep looking at the order and it keeps pissing me off. I don't think any of the teams that were supposed to be in the top 4, and that includes the Pelicans, are happy, or they are happy this morning. I would be shocked if there was someone in the DC area, the Salt Lake area, or the Charlotte area that was like, can't wait for this draft. Everyone's got to be like, what the
Yeah. I told you earlier that my reaction watching this, for a variety of reasons, because the Pels falling out of what I hoped, as optimistic as I would have been of, it'd be great to get number 1, get Cooper Flag, all those things. I just wanted top 4 or 5 or so in a draft where you have a handful of guys that are viewed as really kind of the top flight guys. And so the Pelicans fall completely out of that range. And by the end of this, we'll get to the dynamic of who should the Pels look at number 7. I don't really have an answer that I'm excited about at this point, but all of the Pels piece kind of unfolds.
I have an answer.
They're
trade.
Let's save it. Let's get to this at the end of it. But 2 teams that I didn't want near the top were the Mavs and the Sixers, because of the way that a lot has been managed with those respective organizations. And the Mavs get the top pick, absolutely backdoor into redemption-ish for Nico. I still don't think anyone is forgiving him for anything that's happened, but he gets kind of a distraction from the way that he mismanaged the Luka situation. And so I saw people on Twitter last night and people in text messages last night that said no team deserved it more than Dallas, which is just factually fucking wrong in every which way.
Yeah, there we go.
You could make the case
on board now.
You could make the case that a fan base in Dallas deserved it because of the way that Nico had burnt them, but the team itself, the reason that you would say that the fan base deserved it is because of how badly the team mismanaged itself. So don't give me Dallas was the most deserving team, because that's just way off. The fans in Dallas I feel bad for because of what your own team did to you. But as all of that unfolds and Dallas is number 1 and 2 of the Pelicans division rivals are in the top 2 and the Pels are number 7 and all these things, I'm just sitting there watching like multiple Step Brothers quotes of this wedding is horse and I've got a belly full of white dog crap and now you lay this on me after an entire season of, you know what, the silver lining is great pick in a great draft, and then you don't even get a top 5 pick. You don't get the 6th pick. You get almost as bad as it could have been. You could have slid to 8. You could have had maybe Houston in the mix along with the other Texas teams up top and just hurt yourselves from a divisional standpoint. But being 7th and having the Mavs get saved at 1 and the Spurs continue to bolster that intriguing young roster, it's a bad deal for the Pelicans right now.
For the NBA, this system of the lottery doesn't work to create as much parity. Obviously that's not what it is, because you don't want to just have a team tank like in the NFL because one player can just turn around a whole franchise. We've seen that all over the place in the NBA league history. You get LeBron or Melo or Wade in that in that 2003 draft. All of a sudden, both of those 3 franchises' trajectory went up. Cleveland went a little more like this, but I think it's really sad that these smaller market teams, which we've seen and we're seeing in this NBA playoffs right now, the smaller market teams can hold a lot of value and can be, and Dallas is a smaller market team. I get that, but it's not a smaller market team that was small, not the big
Dallas the Metroplex is pretty big. Yeah.
I would say like tier 2, not in the tier 1 of its biggest, whatever. It just like there's the Hornets, the Jazz, the Wizards. Even the Nets and the Raptors. It's just like those teams are not going to, and I know New York is not a small market. I do know that. Those teams are going to be stuck again in just this baseless, oh, okay, I guess we'll see what LaMelo Ball can do. I guess we'll let Lauri Markkanen run around for like, this could have been an opportunity to bring another young team along instead of a team with 3 aging superstars. And now they're going to get saved just like LA did. And by the way, every Dallas fan that I saw on Twitter last night that was like, just trade the number 1 pick for Luka. Get the out of here. Okay. That shit is done. He's gone. You're not going to get him back. The Lakers aren't going to give you the Lakers aren't going to be like, oh, we'll take that number 1 pick for someone who looks like he's going to be very good, but we have no clue for a top 3 player in the NBA. Get out of here. It's over. All right. Your life isn't that shit anymore. Okay. No. It wasn't even that shit to begin with. You had AD and Kyrie. Still, yes, you had some injuries. That really sucks, but they're going to come back next year. All right. You know what isn't going to happen is no one is walking through the Utah Jazz door that is going to tick up more than like 2 or 3 wins. All right. It's ridiculous. And I do think the Pelicans are a little bit uniquely situated because of how bad the injury bug hit them last year, that they do have some talent. They got a great pick in Yves Missi last year, but every mock draft that I've seen have just had them taking another center again. What the hell? What? You just hit on a center. And you're going to take a center in the top 7. That doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense at all. I hate this so much. I'm going to throw something again.
So obviously, I mean, the Luka situation is gone. Dallas fans, sorry. But what the number 1 pick does of interest to me with Dallas in terms of potential trade dynamics is the storyline we watched earlier in the day unfolding was these mounting tea leaves of Giannis might, in fact, end up on his way out of Milwaukee. And I think the 1-2 punch of Dallas and San Antonio now being atop the draft, along with the Rockets being in the lottery with all the pieces the Rockets already have, is I think one of those Texas teams probably comes out of this thing with Giannis if Giannis is on the move. And people talked about after the trade deadline, Luka not being shopped and like, could there have been an opportunity to flip somewhere else other than LA and get more? Could there have been, if they had held on to Luka to this point, could there have been a workings of a Luka Giannis type trade framework where other stuff is in play? And you now have the ammunition potentially to get involved in that conversation somewhere along the way. I don't know that I see it ending up that way. In terms of the Lakers' involvement, I wouldn't be surprised if, okay, now that the number 1 pick's going to Dallas, does Dallas try to flip Gafford or Lively to LA for Reeves and another piece or something along those lines? But I'm curious for you.
I don't know if Nico
I'm,
Harrison would survive another trade with LA. I don't care if it was just trading candy from your lunch pail. Okay. Like,
I'm curious for you because I'm pissed about a lot. Are you more pissed that the Pels are at 7 or that the Mavs are at 1?
Mavs being at 1. Getting bailed out
same.
for that horrendous trade. That it is literally and widely considered one of the worst trades to have ever happened in NBA history, and it's less than 7 months old. It was
3.5 months ago.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, I wanted to make sure I was right. I said under a certain amount. I knew it was less than 7, so that's why I said that. That it is. I think it's just egregious. I think that the system we talked about this off air. I think the lottery system needs to be changed. I think that if you are teams 10 through 14, 15, whatever it is, you shouldn't have a chance at the number 1. I just don't think you should. You made a good point. I said maybe just have a lottery for the top 5, top 6, top 10 teams, whatever that is. And you suggested maybe having one lottery for the front half and then a second lottery for the different one. I think you should do that. I think that gives the NBA another thing to do. You could do your mid-tier lottery one day and then come back, and we see the NFL do it all the time. They're literally tomorrow going to have a show where they just tell us who's playing each other, and they're going to milk 2 hours out of it. The NBA could make a marketing opportunity out of this. And also I think doing that and allowing that pool of who's going to get the number 1 pick go down to probably the 7 or 8 teams that are really is going to just make a better, more better product. It's just going to make so much more parity. Being able to give the teams that are actually dying for a superstar or a chance at a superstar. And by the way, I'm kind of taking the Pelicans out of this because the Pelicans have had luck in the lottery and they have had swings at superstars.
Mm-hmm.
But these teams that you're just rocking, see what LaMelo Ball does every single day, and maybe Brandon Miller's a nice player. You get a chance to make. I thought the Hornets were going to get. I was like, oh, that's going to be kind of cool to see one Cooper Flag stay in North Carolina. And it's already it would be such a huge base. I thought that would be super cool. Like, you're already going to have a huge built-in base there. for a guy that just took the team on a deep NCAA tournament run. Like that would have been so cool. And then he goes to Dallas. Who cares more about that George Pickens just got traded over there than they probably do about the number 1 pick right now. And also that Nico Harrison got fleeced by Rob Pelinka and is now just getting rewarded for an absolute just awful management job as a GM. And he's getting saved by it.
If the draft order had ended up Charlotte number 1, Spurs number 2, Philly number 3, Dallas number 4, I would have been disappointed in the Pels being 7, but I would have been fine. And that's the luck of the draft sort of thing. The Dallas up top really aggravated me. And look, you mentioned the Pels have won out in some interesting situations in the past where people kind of look at it a little sideways at how the draft lottery panned out. And I think we talked about before, as much as historically I continue to say with any sort of rigged sports dynamic, there's too much money involved for too many different people, and there's too high of a competitive nature of the athletes involved and the owners and the coaches and the GMs and all that stuff, that I have a difficult time imagining any of these leagues being fixed in these ways that people claim, and the rest of the league just allowing that to happen. But it is wild how consistently the NBA lottery lands with the crazy storyline of, okay, this fan base is ticked for this reason, and now you get the number 1 pick despite the fact that you only had 1.5% odds of getting it. And so the consistency of that happening over the last, I guess, 40 years now is a little bit wild when you look at the 2 Pels wins, 2 or 3 Cavs wins.
Yeah.
Going all the way back to the Spurs, the Knicks starting the shit in the mid 80s and getting Ewing in that sweepstakes. Like, there's such a wild history of, if you average it out, just an insane landing spot for the number 1 pick every like 4 or 5 years. It's, if not more so than that, it's pretty wild.
I don't think that the teams.
I'm not claiming foul necessarily, but the more the evidence stacks, the more I have to look at the conspiracy theorist online and be like, you know what, your point is bolstered once again.
Yeah. Now, I don't think that the Mavs had any clue that this was happening. If you watch, I saw on Cowherd today before we got on to record, their draft room whenever they were watching, and it's like 12 grown men losing their mind. Like one of the dudes from Dude Perfect just hit like a shot from the upper decks and hit it a little tiny. Everyone's freaking out. I don't think they had any clue. Do I think maybe Adam Silver had a little mix up and was like, yeah, well, just do that. And they made a point to say, like, this guy is the only person in the room that knows the full lottery from this random firm. And then the guy like side eye and just walked out. Like it just, the whole thing smells bad. It doesn't taste good. It's expired milk. Something's not good here. I don't like it. Basically, I don't like it. I don't even want to go to who the Pels are going to get there. I want them to trade the pick. That's what I want them to trade the pick. Go get Kevin Durant.
But so the problem is that this draft pick is no longer a kind of nebulous future first draft pick. It is very clearly the number 7, and everyone in the league knows it's a pick that comes after the drop off in prospects. And so the value of this pick drops off drastically.
But you just hold
overnight
tight until something happens with Giannis, because you have both of those Milwaukee picks. So you can package 7 and one from, 27, I think is one of the ones with Milwaukee you do that as soon as but now it is a waiting game for Giannis, which it seems like everyone in every corner of the NBA is just saying, like, it is now a waiting game to see what happens with Giannis. And then all these other dominoes will fall. The KD domino, what happens, even the Lakers going after a big man. All of these things are just kind of waiting on what does Houston do. All these things are, hey, where does Giannis go? Where does Giannis end up? If he ends up leaving that Milwaukee, then those first round picks they become like gold, and you could go out and maybe get someone. I think throwing maybe CJ in there to a actual contender or someone like that, I think wouldn't hurt as at all either. Something like that. They do still have some good assets with Jordan Hawkins on the bench. Not really getting a lot of playing time, a lot of rotation, that they can either go with that or that they can throw him in there with something and watch him flourish like Dyson Daniels did this year somewhere else. It's frustrating. It's just frustrating to be a Pelicans fan. And then honestly,
Yeah.
I'm getting worried that when the league decides that they're going to make two new teams, that something might happen to this New Orleans team. That's my pessimistic mindset coming in.
I do still like all those pieces. I love a lot of pieces on the Pels roster. I'm such a huge Herb and Trey guy in particular, but I think that the Pels have positioning with some of their young talent and those 26 and 27 picks from Milwaukee, that as much as I like the Bucks, as sad as it is to see tea leaves continue to mount that Giannis may be on his way out, it makes for an integration for the Pels. And so there are reasons to be optimistic about the potential for jumps here in the next couple of years for the Pels. It was just really tough to watch the way Monday night panned out for them. For sure. Really, really frustrating. And we'll see how this draft goes. But again, I am no longer excited about this NBA draft. I'm no longer excited from a Pels standpoint. I'm always excited about the NBA draft, but from a Pels standpoint, it's what.
This is the second time with the Pelicans in this year that you've been immediately shut off by the prospect. As soon as the Pelicans at the beginning of the year got a rough start, you were like, it's tank mode. Let's go. And then as soon as this happened, it's like, well, not excited anymore. That feels like that's a good theme, I think, for Pelicans fans in the last calendar year or so, since Zion scored 50 in the playoff game. And then I think that may have been the only good thing coming from this, is that with Zion being in that front facing of a role last night, I don't think I would be hard to see that he gets traded.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That was a big of a tea leaf of, hey, he was there for this. That's a big frontward facing role for the franchise, Yeah.
The storyline of Zion going up there 100% was an interesting story because of that showing a level of commitment that he's about to be a part of the future. If he was up there to essentially say, okay, here's who we're landing that is going to be a part of a rebuild that sends me out of town, that would have been an insane move by the Pelicans to send him up there for that. But Z is in the fold moving forward. The two dynamics you mentioned of me being done with the Pels season as early as I was and me being over the draft is a real bad sign, because I am a very forgiving, patient, optimistic, like glass half full fan when it comes to fan things, or just person when it comes to life things. And so the fact that I've now twice in the span of this season written off Pels situations is a really bad deal for just kind of litmus test of where they are. Let's get into Saints stuff though, because I got to get the hell out of here soon.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, let's go to some happy news, because I'm calling it happy news. Derek Carr is retired from the Saints. I wish him the best with the shoulder injury. That man has made a lot of money. I don't feel that bad for him. He's going to have a career probably as an analyst somewhere. He's a likable guy on camera. I won't say off camera, I don't know him. But he's gone. And the $30 million that he was going to get paid is gone with him as well. It's such a I don't know if he did this for the Saints, because I think that eventually he does try to make a comeback. I think he takes this year to rehab and then tries to make a comeback and go somewhere else. But the gift that he gave the Saints of not having to pay him that $30 million, when if he wasn't going to play this year, he probably could have just rehabbed on that dime, took home all that money. The Saints cap room has just gotten a little bit of a breather. And I just think now is totally the time to completely blow it up. And
huge, man. It only took Pope Leo the 14th 48 hours to help the Saints get the Derek Carr contract off their books moving forward. Look, he's going to walk away with a nice piece from this in terms of the deal that they were able to reach. He's leaving with several millions of dollars on top of what he's made to this point in a lucrative career, but get particularly in 2026. And so this considering how ugly it seemed like it was getting with kind of the he said dynamic of what the communication was like about the shoulder injury and all those things, this ended up about as positively as as it could have ended for the Saints to have some kind of light at the end of the tunnel financially.
Yeah, and now there's going to be an open quarterback competition. Spencer Rattler, Jake Haener, and Tyler Shuck. I think the consensus is that Tyler Shuck comes out on top of that. But I also wouldn't be surprised if you see maybe Spencer Rattler start the year. I think Spencer Rattler didn't look great last year, but I also don't think that he got the best opportunity to make what was given of his talents. I think Kellen Moore presents a little bit more of an opportunity to do that. I still think that, Spencer Rattler does have a really good arm and did show some toughness after getting mauled last season. But I don't expect him to keep that job very long. Or even get it completely out of camps and that. I think the Saints want to see what they have in Tyler Shuck to see if they need to move on from him very quickly, like Will Levis, like the Will Levis treatment in Tennessee. So, they'll get a really good look at these young quarterbacks over the course of this 25 season, and then have a great sense going into a 26 draft that's loaded with quarterback talent of, do you take one of the guys, depending on where you land, do you take a guy that falls to you? Do you maybe package some things, move up to get the guy that you want a little bit higher in the draft? Or do you have something in one young guys under the new coaching tutelage that you feel good about building around for the future? And so we're going to see what this 2025 season holds. I think it's going to be a big learning process around the Saints in a variety of ways. But I'm comfortable with that. That's what I'm going in ready for. Okay, let's see how the chips fall and what the cards hold in this first year for the coaching staff and the quarterback situation and on down the line. And then, 26, let's see some big moves. Absolutely. Finally, the LSU Tigers and Clemson Tigers are going to open up the season for this year's college football, the 2026 college football season, 2025 college football, 2026, 2025,
it'll still be 25.
It'll end in 2026. They finally came out with time for this kickoff game. Jared, do you want to go a little bit into that? This news just kind of dropped right before we got on.
Yeah, Tuesday morning, Brett McMurphy of the Action Network reporting the ESPN broadcast schedule for week 1 action, a lot of ACC, SEC matchups that he was able to get a hold of that broadcast slate. And LSU and Clemson will be a Saturday night in the other Death Valley up there in Clemson, 7:30 p.m. Tigers versus Tigers, what is going to be a top 10 matchup pretty much for sure, if not even a top 5 matchup potentially going into the season. So prime time on ABC for the Tigers in a game that will be a huge swing game for two teams with national championship hopes off the bat.
And I'm refused to call it Death Valley. I like to call it the Graveyard because they literally put a graveyard right next to their stadium, which is just mind-boggling to me that you want death right next to your stadium. But that's fine. That's cool. That's really good. Your SO sign is really cool.
I have never referred to it as actual Death Valley until it was useful as the lead to a story about 30 minutes ago to say in the other Saturday night in the other Death Valley. But look, you got a cemetery or graveyard or whatever next to the stadium. Like, way to commit to the bit, if you want to be Death Valley, they really went all in. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we can't do an earthquake, but we can put our dead here. We can mourn the past right next to our stadium, which feels like a Clemson autobiography. Mourn the past. Anyway, that's all we got for you today. I've got a lot of editing to do, so I'm going to go get to this. Jared's got to make a trek somewhere. We're going to be back with you later this week. Talk a little bit more about the fallout from this NBA draft lottery. We'll go a little bit into the NBA playoffs. Naz Reid's playing his ass off right now. Add one more question on at the end. Actually, no, we've said ass before. We'll leave ass in. All right.
Ass is fine. Ass is fine. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into the conversation again here soon because, we talked about the Giannis piece a little bit in this episode again, along with the draft lottery, the Jason Tatum injury. I can't remember a day in May where as much changed for the landscape of the league as changed on Monday. And so there's a lot to get to next time for sure.
Hey, and we'll keep you updated on that. Follow us on socials, PODnas_LA on Instagram. You can check out all Louisiana versus all y'all stuff on YouTube. You're obviously watching that here right now. Like, comment, share. We'd love to hear from you. You can go to LA versus all y'all on Twitter and on Instagram to follow Jarrett there. Some of the best content for Louisiana sports, Louisiana recruiting, everything that you need to know from the boot. Go to Louisiana versus all y'all. They've got you there. We'll see you next time. PODnas out.